Britain was once known as the workshop of the world, a place where factories roared, chimneys smoked, and entire cities grew around machines and workers. These factories didn't just build products, they built the nation's economy, its cities, and its future. But what happens when the machines stop, the workers leave, and the buildings are left to crumble? In this video, we uncover the stories behind the factories that built Britain, and why so many of them were left to rot. During the First World War, H M Factory Gretna became one of the largest munitions factories in the world. Built in record time between 1915 and 1916, it stretched over 9 miles and employed more than 30,000 workers, many of them women, known as the Gretner girls. Their job was dangerous, producing cordite, a type of explosive vital for the war effort. The scale of the site was staggering. Entire villages were created to house the workers, complete with their own shops, schools and police stations. It was a city built solely for war, running day and night to meet the military's demands. Gretna became a symbol of Britain's industrial strength and sacrifice during a time of global crisis. When the war ended, the factory's purpose disappeared almost overnight. Production ceased. Buildings were stripped and parts of the site were sold off or demolished. Some areas found new life in agriculture or industry, but large sections were simply abandoned to nature and time. Today, little remains of what was once a vast industrial empire. Scattered ruins and forgotten pathways mark the landscape, silent witnesses to a moment when this quiet corner of Scotland helped fuel an entire war. Some say you can still feel the weight of history in the air, where thousands once risked their lives daily. How could something so huge, so vital, vanish so completely? That's the strange fate of many of Britain's forgotten factories. Though much of the original site has been lost or repurposed, memorials and museums now preserve the story of Gretna's wartime role. Visitors can learn about the workers, the risks they faced, and how this forgotten factory helped shape the course of history. What remains today stands as a quiet monument to sacrifice, resilience, and the power of industry in times of crisis. The Slough Trading Estate is often called Britain's first true industrial estate. Born out of the ashes of the First World War, it began when disused military vehicles and equipment were stored on the site. Soon, it evolved into a hub for manufacturing, attracting companies from across the country and turning Slough from a sleepy town into an industrial powerhouse. By the 1930s, it had become a blueprint for modern industrial zones. Thousands of workers found employment there, producing everything from electrical goods to confectionery. The estate even had its own railway system, hospitals and fire service. It represented the ambition of a country eager to rebuild itself through industry and innovation. As technology advanced and industries changed, many of the original factories fell silent. Some were demolished, others left standing but empty, relics of a busier, noisier past. While Slough Trading Estate continues to operate, much of its early industrial heart has been lost beneath modern developments. Behind the offices and warehouses of today, you can still trace the outlines of a time when British industry ruled the world. Old brick buildings and forgotten railway lines tell a quieter story beneath the polished surfaces. Despite the losses, Slough Trading Estate remains a symbol of Britain's ability to adapt. While the old factories may be gone, new industries have taken their place, and the estate continues to evolve with the times. Beneath its modern exterior, echoes of its industrial past still shape the way it looks and works today. For more than a century, Camperdown Works stood as the beating heart of Dundee's global jute industry. Opened in the early 1830s, it grew to become the largest jute mill in the world, employing thousands and dominating the city's skyline with its vast brick buildings and towering chimneys. It wasn't just a factory. It was a world of its own, complete with its own railway, school and hospital. The mill turned raw materials into sacks, ropes and textiles that travelled the world. Generations of families worked within its walls, enduring harsh conditions and long hours, but finding pride in the industry that put Dundee on the map. Camperdown was more than just work. It was community, identity and survival for many. As global demand for jute declined, the writing was on the wall. By the 1980s, the machines fell silent. In 1981, Camperdown Works closed its doors for good, leaving behind an enormous empty shell. Parts of the site were demolished, others were left to rot as nature crept in. Today, fragments of Camperdown's past still stand, some repurposed for modern use. But much of it remains as broken brick and rusted steel, reminders of a time when Dundee powered the world's industry through sweat and machinery. The silence here feels heavy, loaded with forgotten voices. What remains of Camperdown is now a blend of preservation, decay and reinvention. Parts of the site have been transformed into spaces for leisure, business and education, but many corners remain untouched. These ruins serve as stark reminders of Dundee's industrial heyday and the communities that once depended on them. For decades, Greenwood and Batley was one of the most respected engineering firms in Britain. Founded in 1856, it produced everything from locomotives to ammunition, serving both industry and military with innovation and precision. Its factories in Leeds became a hub of manufacturing excellence, known across the world for quality and scale. During both World Wars, the site played a key role in Britain's military production. Thousands of workers, men and women, contributed to the war effort from inside those factory walls. After the wars, the company continued to thrive, adapting to changes in technology and demand, but the decline of British heavy industry proved unstoppable. By the 1980s, Greenwood and Batley was in serious trouble. In 1984, it went into liquidation. The factories that had once symbolised progress and strength were left to decay. Today, most of the original buildings are gone, demolished to make way for new developments. Only scattered remnants remain, hidden among warehouses and retail parks. For Leeds, the name Greenwood and Batley survives only in history books and old photographs. Although the buildings have vanished, the name Greenwood and Batley still holds weight in Leeds' industrial heritage. Locals remember its contribution to the city's growth and prosperity, and historians continue to study its legacy as part of Britain's rise and fall as a manufacturing powerhouse. Teesside Steelworks once stood as a symbol of Britain's industrial might. Founded in the mid-19th century, this vast complex became one of the largest steel producers in Europe. Its towering blast furnaces and endless conveyor belts powered not just the north of England, but helped shape skylines and build bridges around the world. At its peak, the steelworks employed tens of thousands of people. Families built their lives around the rhythms of the plant, where shifts ran day and night, and the glow of molten steel lit up the skies. Teesside Steel travelled across the globe, fueling projects from railways to skyscrapers. But as global demand shifted and competition increased, Britain's steel industry began to falter. By the early 2000s, closures loomed and jobs disappeared. In 2015, the last blast furnace at Redcar was shut down. What followed was slow demolition, dismantling a century of industrial heritage piece by piece. Today, parts of the site stand silent, skeletal remains of what was once a powerhouse. Where there was once smoke and fire, now there is only rust and emptiness. Communities built on steel were forced to reinvent themselves as their foundations were torn away. Plans for the site's future remain uncertain, with proposals ranging from redevelopment to conservation. Yet for those who lived through its rise and fall, the ruins of Teesside Steelworks are more than just empty shells. They are a symbol of pride, loss, and the end of an era. Hidden in the woods near Penrhyn Dewdreth, this factory once played a deadly serious role in Britain's military past. Founded in 1865, it produced explosives for over a century, supplying materials for both world wars and maintaining Britain's defence stockpiles throughout the Cold War. At its height, the site employed hundreds and operated with strict secrecy. Explosives were manufactured, tested and stored under tight security, far from public view. Safety measures were extreme, with buildings spaced out to minimise damage in case of accidents. As military needs changed, the factory's relevance faded. In 1995, it was finally shut down, leaving behind a scattered maze of bunkers, blast walls and abandoned offices. Nature began reclaiming the land almost immediately. Today, the site is part of a nature reserve, its dangerous past softened by trees and wildlife. Walkers pass crumbling ruins without realising what once happened there. The silence of the forest hides stories of explosions, secrecy, and the people who worked in the shadows. Today, the contrast between its peaceful appearance and violent history is striking. Few who walk these paths realise how crucial this hidden place once was to Britain's security. The land may now be quiet, but the stories of those who worked there remain buried beneath its soil. Once a proud symbol of Britain's cotton industry, Trencherfield Mill opened its doors in 1907 as one of the most advanced steam-powered mills of its time. With its iconic giant steam engine driving production, it quickly became a cornerstone of Wigan's industrial success. The mill's 4 floors were alive with the noise of looms and workers, producing cotton on a massive scale for both domestic and international markets. At its height, the mill helped to sustain the local economy, providing stable work for generations of families. Its vast machinery and imposing structure stood as a testament to the innovation and ambition that drove Britain's industrial revolution. The mill didn't just shape cloth, it shaped lives, forming part of Wigan's identity for much of the 20th century. As the cotton trade declined, Trencherfield's fate was sealed. By the late 1960s, operations ceased, and the building began its slow descent into dereliction. Yet, unlike many lost mills, Trencherfield found a second life. The steam engine was preserved and restored, now a centrepiece for visitors curious about Britain's industrial past. Today, parts of the building have been repurposed into residential and commercial spaces. The giant engine still runs on special occasions, a living reminder of the power that once drove an empire. Trencherfield Mill may no longer produce cotton, but its legacy continues to turn. How many other factories like this are waiting for someone to listen to their story? Hidden in the heart of Derbyshire, Torvale Mill traces its roots back to the late 18th century. Originally powered by water from the River Goyt, it began as a modest cotton spinning mill before expanding with steam technology in the Victorian era. Over the decades, it grew into a significant local employer, operating through the peaks and troughs of Britain's textile industry. For more than 2 centuries, Torvale survived fires, floods, and fierce competition. It became a rare example of an industrial site in continuous use from the 1790s until the year 2000. Workers passed their trade down through generations, maintaining a craft that seemed timeless even as the world around them changed. When it finally closed, the mill was left to decay. Roofless buildings, rusted machinery and crumbling brickwork became part of the landscape, a monument to industry left behind. Despite this, efforts have been made to preserve what remains, and discussions continue over how best to give Torvale a future. Today, the site stands as a fragile blend of history and neglect. Its ruins, whisper of labour, resilience, and the rise and fall of Britain's textile empire. For those who visit, it offers a haunting glimpse into a world built on cotton, sweat, and steam. These factories once built Britain's future, powering its economy, shaping its cities, and changing the lives of millions. They stood as monuments to ambition, innovation, and hard work, yet many were left to crumble when their purpose was lost. Some have found new life through restoration, others remain in ruins, silent witnesses to a world that moved on without them. Their stories remind us how quickly even the greatest industries can vanish. If you enjoy these forgotten pieces of history, make sure to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next journey into Britain's lost past.